So thanks everyone for coming. Hopefully this session will help you get lots of insight into what a judge really looks for in a winning entry. The sessions are for all organisations entering any sustainability awards, so not just the Global Good Awards, but as we are the Global Good Awards, I'm going to give a little bit of intro into us, if you don't know already. As far as I'm aware, we are the truly only sustainable awards programme on the calendar. We really do practice what we preach, and you can find out a little bit more about that on our website. We're accredited with a awards trust mark, which was first in the world to receive gold. And that mark is to recognise ethical and transparent practices and to build trust between entrants and the awards scheme. And from next month, we'll also be members of 1% for the Planet. So we'll be donating 1% of our turnover for all of the award entries, sponsorship and ticket sales to 1% for the Planet. And if you enter the Global Good Awards this year, probably an ongoing, we're going to be doing a buy one, get one tree, which we won't be planting a tree, we'll be protecting one. So any entries that come in, you'll be protecting one tree as a benefit. So a little bit about our categories. We've got 17 categories this year. Have a look at the website for more details on those. A couple of key ones that we've added. So we've added a COVID Crisis Champions Award this year, and that is for any organisations to enter free if they're entering another category, but also free to all public sector healthcare services here in the UK and globally. We've also got our Canon Young Champion of the Year award, obviously sponsored by Canon, looking for 9 to 21-year-old leaders and champions for change across all social and environmental issues. And we've also added our Waste Reduction and Minimalisation Award, which is already receiving quite a lot of interest. But this session, we're going to be talking about community partnership, the COVID crisis category, and also educational excellence. So before I come on to our judges, I'm going to explain quickly how the session will run. The judges will introduce themselves, qualify why they're on the session, and then they're going to tell us or tell you one thing that impresses them in an entry, one thing that they look for in a winning entry, and then something that they would mark down for that they don't want to see or would be missing. Then it's over to you to drive the session. So please make sure that you've come armed with questions. So please start asking the questions straight away. If you've got some, we will come back to them as soon as the judges have finished their intros. There's no silly questions, just ask anything you like. If you've got a confidential question that is specific to your business, please ask it in the Q&A section under anonymous, and I'll ask one of the judges to answer it directly. But otherwise, please just put all questions in the under panelists and attendees in the chat section, and then I'll moderate that and ask the judges to answer them live. It's being recorded, so it will be uploaded to YouTube and it will be shared on our Ask the Judges page website. So today we have some amazing judges with us, some of which simply refuse to give up their seats. Speaking of which, today we have two real stalwarts for GGA with tons of experience. We got Will Ackerman from My Kind of Future. He's joining us for his 6th year on the judging panel, and he is the one that always replies to my email first to say, yes, please, I'll come back for next year. Joining him, and also who works with My Kind of Future, Catherine Baddeley from Cisco, also coming back for her 6th year. So you've got lots of experience here, guys. And then joined by our newbie judge this year, Michael Blake from the Crown Estate. So I'm going to start with, let's start with Will. Unmute yourself, Will.
Ready. I'm like a coiled spring, ready for action. I'm Will from My Kind of Future, and we as a business support underrepresented people through education to help them prepare and get into work, and more recently help them do well in work. So that's what we focus on. We do work with some amazing partners, and Cisco and Catherine are one of those incredible partners who deliver real sustained impact to society, especially young people. So I think it was one piece of advice, Karen, and one piece of kind of things that I'd suggest you don't do. I suppose my advice would be, I think it's always highly marked where a program is integrated throughout your organization. So if it's got multiple touch points within your organization, rather than a kind of separate standalone activity that doesn't involve anyone from your business really. And the same could be said of the beneficiaries. So where it is a sustained multiple touch point. So that kind of level of integration, I think, is really strong. Something that I'd recommend not doing is failing to answer the question. And obviously, it just sounds so stupid of me saying that, but every single year, there's at least 10% of all the entries who don't actually answer the question. They write words down, but they don't answer the question. So that would be a kind of great tip from me.
That's actually come up before, actually, Will. Yeah, people get very carried away with writing their entry, and they get very passionate about what they want to say, and they forget to come back to what we've actually asked them for. So yeah, that's please guys, that's a good tip. Make sure you read the question and read the application, read the description, read the criteria points, and make sure you read them a few times. Don't just read them once and think you've remembered everything. So do revert back to those. Let's come on to Catherine.
Thanks. So yeah, I'm Catherine Badley. I'm head of corporate social responsibility for Cisco UK and Ireland. Yeah, 6-year judging. And I love being part of this because it is some way that you get insight into what other people are doing right across the board. Things about a winning entry. Think about what makes you different. Think about what's innovative. And then think about the impact that you've truly had. The number of people who attended something isn't an impact measurement. That's just, in the old marketing terms, it's just counting bums on seats. What we actually want to know is, and therefore what happened next? Why did that make a change to someone? Why did that make them different in their education? So just trying to get a little bit beyond counting things and into real impact. That's becoming much more important if you're going to be successful. I think the other thing is make sure it's written authentically to your organisation. We read quite a lot that are obviously written beautifully, using lots of words, but they don't sound as if they were written by the organisation. They don't sound authentic. I'm not saying don't involve your PR and marketing agencies, and that's great if you can, but make sure that if it's about your company, you're the one that's driving it and it's created in the right way. So hope that helps. Karen, you're on mute.
I was telling you you're on mute, and there I am on mute. Is there anything that you would be put off by? Anything that you don't like to see?
Yeah, in my case, keep it brief. I've got the attention span of a gnat at the best of times. This takes a lot of time to get through these applications. Make sure that you answer the point. And if you are going to include just your entire CSR report or your sustainability report, at least point us to the page that we should be reading, because it takes a long time. And we want to give you the best we can. We want to give you the best attempt at winning this. So we do try, but a lot of entries, a lot of words. So we need pointers to the right place to look.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, one of the things that came up in one of the other sessions was those first couple of paragraphs are key. If you want to try and capture the attention of your judges and capture their interest to keep reading, then keep those first couple of paragraphs absolutely on the money. And talking about supporting documents, with the best will in the world, a judge is not going to read 60 pages of CSR report. We've also had applications that have uploaded their corporate guidelines with 5 logos. I mean, we don't need that. We just need 1 logo, and we don't need your corporate guidelines unless there's a particular reason you're giving it to us. So yeah, please make sure you use that additional comment section at the bottom of the application form to tell judges where they need to look in your supporting documents if you can't break up PDFs. So let's come on to Michael. Welcome to the judging panel, Michael.
Many thanks. Morning, everyone. So I'm Michael Blake. My remit within the Crown Estate is management of all of our charity partnerships across our different pillars. So that's partnerships that are focused on aspects of homelessness, food poverty, supporting female entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs as well. And I've actually written and supported and writing 2 applications for this awards. One was individual leader, which Marcia at the time came second, but the winner was very much a deserved winner. And then a few years ago, when I was at the East End Community Foundation, it was actually for community partnership. So I've been on the other side of the table as well. So it's quite nice to be on the judging side. And I think an advice for me, just from being on the writing side, is don't downplay the innovation that you might be doing that you might think is the day-to-day. I think so many times we're in the third sector, there's so many amazing things that you're doing and that you have been doing, but you feel like it needs to be more than that. And it could actually be something that you consider quite simple, but nobody else has done yet. And it's one of those things where if you just kind of speak about what you know and what has been happening, that can actually be really powerful, as opposed to kind of looking for the thing that you think is innovative and that you think we might like, but in fact has a lot of history behind it and a lot of impact. And then I think for myself, one of the things that I think I wouldn't like to see is, in terms of those impact measurements, I think it does definitely need to be quantifiable. So we would all like to kind of see the level of impact had, or jobs created, or things along those lines. But please also don't kind of forget the case studies within that, and speaking to the organizations that you've worked with, or the actual people that have had impact. Hearing the story from the one person that you've perhaps put into a role or created a job, say if it was Will's organization, can be really powerful, because it's that deeper impact where they might speak about, this job has improved their confidence as well as their financial well-being and every other aspect of what they've done. So a marriage of both is always really powerful for me. So make sure not to forget that as well.
Thank you, Michael. That's really good info. Judges, have you got anything else that you want to add? Well, people, please ask some questions, guys. This is Ask the Judges, so do ask away. I've got some information from some of the other questions that have been asked on some of the other panels, but yeah, do keep them coming. Anything else you want to add about any programs? Will, Catherine, you've obviously run something together. Will, go for it.
Yeah, so I wasn't going to talk about the program that we support Cisco on, but I was just going to add another piece of advice, and that is, I think it's always great to see what you've achieved, and impact and great data, but opportunities where you can amplify that future success. So okay, you've achieved a great success and really terrific impact that you've evidenced, but I think some strong entries often show how they have amplified that further, whether it's through their supply chain or partners or wider network, or how they plan to.
Right. Okay. We have got a couple of questions pop in. They've been put in the Q&A under anonymous, but I don't think they're particularly confidential. So in the partnership, how many business organizations would you aim to talk about? Is there a limit? What do you think, guys? You can all answer that if you'd like to chip in on that.
I don't think there's a limit, as long as you can see what each contribution is to that partnership.
Yeah.
So if it is truly a partnership and there are 10 of you, then great, that's fine. If there are just 2 of you, that's fine too. It's really about what does each partner bring to that partnership, and what have you combined to make more successful. So if you've got a lot of people, then that's great. Obviously, yeah, you might start to get challenged a bit by a word count on that one if you're trying to include quotes from everyone and points for everyone and things like that. But no, I think the more the merrier in those things, as long as there is a distinct reason for having those different organizations in the partnership.
Yeah, and just adding to that, just make sure that if there's been a bigger two partners, if you've got 10 and there's 2 partners that done majority of the work, make sure you feature them more than the others. Anyone else want to add to some of that? No. think that was pretty much the only answer, Ruth, that one. So I don't know how many of you did community last year. I don't think any of you might not have done this. What were the standout points from last year's entries? It's a bit of a difficult one to answer. I'll maybe give you a bit of time to think about that one. Because I don't think any of these judges did community or education, because Cisco, I think, Catherine, you wouldn't have been able to have done education last year.
No, I did education last year. We didn't enter last year.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, for me, in the education one, it's all about innovation and impact. So we've got a couple of programs that have stood out because of the sheer volume of students that they've been able to impact. And then we've got a couple where they've gone truly in depth and they've been engaged for a number of years with one school. And obviously that one's easier to show impact because you can actually track those students over a number of years. In terms of community, I think for me, the standout ones were where they have taken different approaches because of that partnership. So I think we've seen some standout points where they've changed perhaps how an industry sees things. So, you know, changing the way that their sector behaves because of bringing in a community partner to judge things differently. I think we saw one from a utility, in the wisest sense of the word, or a build. And actually that one stood out just because they'd behaved so differently because of a community partnership than their sector would normally behave. Every point in it stood out right the way through.
Okay. Just as a reminder, education last year, we had 6 winners because we broke it into large and small organisation, which is something that the judges will do if they feel necessary. So we had Capgemini win with gold last year for a coding program with, I think it was with refugees, and then Groundwork London, and then bronze was NatWest Money Sense. And then we had an Indian project win gold for the small one, and then Rethink Food was silver, and Wild Shots Outreach was a program in South Africa. Yeah, so that was a great project too. So any other questions, folks? Otherwise I will natter on about a few things that had come up in other sections. Michael, talk to me about clear messaging, making the entry very easy to understand. And, you know, judges have got experience in particular areas, but they might not have experience in the particular industry sector. So tell us how important that is.
Yeah, I think it's massively important, particularly because you're going to have loads of different applications coming from different fields that kind of span all of the third or impact sector. So you might have someone who's a social entrepreneur and be using very kind of social enterprisey language, or someone who's a community partner, and, you know, might use a donor advised fund as opposed to a foundation. So even me kind of casually saying donor advised fund kind of brings up that problem, which is ultimately it's jargon that some judges might not understand. So what I would say is do your best to kind of make sure it's as clear and succinct as possible and bring that language down. I know sometimes with these kinds of entries, you might have the need or feel the need to kind of make it sound a bit more sparkly than it actually needs to be. And in fact, it can be the opposite, make it as clear as possible. And, you know, kind of speak to us as if we've had no history or experience in the field. I think that can be really powerful because you don't know who's examining the work that you're doing. And also really draw down kind of the impact from a statistical or case study basis. So if it is kind of, you know, the amount of jobs created or the amount of impact had in a particular area, do just say that. Don't necessarily feel that you need to kind of use a certain set of language or go into a type of jargon that's not necessary. Just really literally say, you know, we spent this amount of money, it created this many jobs, and in 6 months these people were still in work. Kind of make it clear and succinct as possible. And I would say even in terms of the case studies, and it was one of the things that we did at East End Community Foundation, when we were there, we used the people that were beneficiaries to kind of speak themselves and kind of work with them as well, because they were the general public, so they would speak in that general public kind of way and be able to talk about the impact it actually had in their lives, as opposed to speaking kind of from that governance aspect that Catherine mentioned earlier, where it can kind of maybe get tied down in aspects that we're kind of used to when it comes to the end of our annual reporting year, and certain words and jargon slip in. So I think it's really important, because all of us will have different expertise. So really just keep it simple, if I'm honest, and keep it passionate as well. If both come through and it's natural, you will find that we will get enjoyment and feel like they're good applications. Ultimately, we're all in this kind of field because we love it and we love the impact that it has. So kind of connect to us on that really base level. Don't see it as necessarily an exam that you've got to do at the end of the year.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Business as usual. We get quite a lot of entries come in across some of the categories from a business that might just be doing something in the sustainability space or the charity space, and it is their business. So they're great businesses, they're doing great things, but from an entry point of view, you really need to be able to tell a story on top of that. You need to associate what you're doing with how you've impacted clients. So Will, tell us about the importance of a company that is just sort of doing business as usual in that kind of space, working on an entry with their client, and how important that is to show how that impact is coming across.
Yeah, maybe if I start and then I'll hand over to Catherine in a second. But using My Kind of Future and Cisco as an example, Catherine and the team have fantastic capability and expertise, and are very innovative. But I think that it'd be very hard for companies like Cisco to deliver everything themselves. And I think the partnership is the strength, in that we can bring that delivery mechanism to support Cisco and Catherine's vision, but also we bring our own level of expertise and insight from working with different partners in different industries. And in our case, we've developed a mentoring platform which is having great success. So we can help use that to deliver on Cisco's ambitions as well. So I think it is about that partnership. Catherine, I hope you feel it's a partnership as well.
Yeah, I think for us, the strength in the partnership is that we're a corporate. We might be good at innovation, but we don't have the educational background to make sure that what we think is a good idea is actually a good idea. So that definitely makes us stronger, that we can bring in experts who've got that sort of background. And I think in terms of writing these entries, it's important to write them jointly so that it's got the voice of both sides of the partnership in the entry. Very often we've seen them where the lead name might be a corporate or a business, and the partner name might be a charity or a third sector organisation, but unfortunately only one of them has probably written the application, and you just don't feel authentic that it justifies both sides of a partnership. So I think we've read a couple where it's been written by the community partner, and it references the corporate, but you don't feel the corporate's truly engaged. They may have funded a great partnership, but you don't feel that there's engagement beyond that funding. And if you're going to stand out, it needs to be engaged in both sides of that partnership. You need to feel that both organisations are really putting some skin in the game and being involved in it.
Yeah, actually, that Catherine, that did come up in our last session, actually, that it's one of the things that puts a judge off if it's purely funded by a big corporate, and the other part isn't working in partnership. They're effectively delivering it on their own, and it's claimed by the corporate as their entry, and that is something that is not would definitely score you down. So talk to me about statistics, bringing up statistics top and centre, especially if they're sat in your supporting documents and they're hidden. And you know, some of them are really key information. This comes up quite a lot, that judges might have stumbled across something in the supporting documents, and really it's a massive impact they just haven't brought up into the application. Who would like to take that?
Catherine? I've just got a brief point. I shout at the screen, so you know, because I might have found something in a document. I was like, well, why didn't you just say that earlier on? But in reality, there might be 6 of us judging this. And actually, I might be the only one who's spotted that because you haven't brought it up into the core of your application. And so when we come together to talk about an application, it's then difficult to reference that because I might be the only person who's read it. And actually, it might be Will who's the only person who's read it, or Michael, because it's not always, not always me that catches these things. I'm very short on time. It needs to be easy to find and easy to read.
Okay, cool.
Can I add to that?
Yes,
Karen. So I think you know, Michael made the point, Catherine's made the point about the qualifying it with data, and that is fantastic. But as Catherine made the point, when the data is really technical, and and as a judge, I have to spend a lot of time trying to interpret it because I don't understand that jargon, or I have to dig sometimes even on the company's website to try and fathom out exactly what they mean by that data. That is really, really hard work, and it can't be positive for scoring at that level.
Can you just say those 3 words again at the end, Will? Because I don't know whether that was my internet or yours.
It's probably mine. I was just saying, if it's really hard work to get to the bottom of technical jargon or data, that makes a judge's life very difficult if you have to research online or on the corporate website to understand exactly what the entry is trying to get at. That's not going to kind of increase scoring in my mind. No,
I think adding on to big numbers and stats, one of the other things that came up was big numbers making claims. I think Catherine said earlier about how many people attend something is not what the impact is. So the stats that come out from your PR and marketing department would be that judges aren't impressed with it, are talking about reach and impressions on social media. Reach and impressions are just purely, you know, it's got that, you know, the amount of followers times the amount of followers they've got is your reach or your impressions. That's not a true measurement of impact. So make sure that you nail that information down. Can one of you actually give us an idea of what sort of things you look for impact? What evidence do you look for in impact? Michael looks like he's reaching.
Yeah, I'm happy to do this because it's something that I like to talk to our partners about. So it can depend on what it kind of the impact is, but I like to be able to see the depth of it and the longevity as well. So often in kind of what was being spoken about in the big terms, people will give the initial number and say, you know, we had this amount of people through a program, which, you know, is great because you kind of have to know. But I also, in terms of that program, I'd like to know, you know, if it was an employment-based program, are they still in work after 6 months to a year? What was the actual impact of that program on them in terms of the main impact? So, you know, getting them a job potentially, but then what impact did that job have on them as well? So did they have more confidence? Did they find that their mental health and well-being was then improved by it? And in fact, sometimes if it trying to extrapolate that as well, did it have an impact on the overall community that you might be based in, which can even be even more powerful? So being able to say that this particular program either might have brought up the economy of that local area, or at least the connectiveness of it, particularly, you know, with everything that's happened in the world in the last year. Anything that you can kind of show me that people who otherwise wouldn't have been in contact with each other are now kind of in contact is always really powerful as well. And then finally, it's kind of touched on it earlier, drawing out kind of the level of impact that you can't always actually kind of quantify as a number, but can be spoken about. And that might just be, you know, aspects of confidence or of making someone feel like they're valued, or thinking about how a particular issue for an area is now being thought about in a very different way. And Catherine kind of touched on that as well and mentioned it. So if it was kind of seen as previously before that this program was created, this was the way to solve it, and ultimately, you know, it hadn't been solved up until that point, and your program came through with some sort of new form of innovation, and now everybody's kind of thinking about it in a different way, that can be really, really powerful and quite interesting, because you can kind of show that you're not only forward thinking, but as time moves on and goes forward, the basis that you've created can actually create impact for everybody else sort of 5-10 years down the line.
Yeah, and I think that scalability and replicability is key for sure. Anyone else want to add to that? No. Okay. So yeah, just going on from that, you know, when you're talking about your impact and output, one thing that does annoy the judges, and they tell me frequently, is making empty claims about you know, in your statements. And this is unfortunately quite often the content that is written by PR and marketing departments. We've made significant changes. Quantify what you mean by significant. As a result of X, we've boosted our employee engagement immensely. What does immensely mean? You know, give us what you mean by that. And these are actually real examples of content that has come out of applications. So please make sure you qualify and quantify what you mean by that. We've had a question, how much proof or documents would you advise to add to your entry? So I'm assuming we're talking about, you know, testimonials, photos, all that kind of thing. What sort of things are you looking for, judges, in you know, in terms of documentation? Who wants to go?
Oh, is that me? So I think it's not about volume. It's about having just the right pieces of information. A video can be quite powerful if you've got one. So, you know, in terms of testimonials from people, because then we can see that they're real people who really did say those things that you're claiming. Some of the documentation that you'll need for some of the sustainability ones is good to have in the background. Somebody might want to delve into the facts and figures to check what you're saying. In community impact, I mean, Michael might have something to say on this, but I think it's just about having something that we can verify some of the points that you're making. So it could be press coverage, it could be a video of someone, it could be the reporting that you've done. So anything that we can just flick through and get a point of authenticity, if you like, and being able to see that it is truly the claims that you're making have been verified by somebody.
Anything to add, Will, Michael? No.
I think the verification thing is good, but also sometimes a reference point. So if it is quite technical information, you know, I struggle to know, is that truly groundbreaking? Well, actually, if you can say that within your sector or industry, you know, you're in that top 1%, or the industry average is this, or if there's a reference point versus what you're actually delivering, sometimes that's useful, especially where it's a technical kind of submission. I find it useful. Otherwise, I have to defer to an expert. So if it's something to do with computing or IT, I might say, Catherine, this one's over to you to know, you know, what the reduction of carbon footprints of this particular activity. But if you can give some reference points, I think that's not bad.
Okay, cool. So within for all of the categories, there is a description and criteria, and the criteria is very transparently laid out on our website with percentage weighted points for each area. So who would like to talk to everyone about how important it is to make sure you look at those percentage points and put the effort into the ones that have got the highest scores?
I think you've entered it. You've explained
I kind of said it really, didn't I? But
yeah, I think you said it yourself. We're going to spend much more time focused on an application that has answered the questions in the right way. But we've all got to be mindful that you're going to allocate those points, and the weighting exists. And so we're going to be even more careful in those higher weighted areas to make sure that we are going through those with a fine-tooth comb, and we're allocating as close as we can to what we think. The power of this as a group is that we do get together and discuss as judges you know, it's the power of these awards, is that we get together and discuss these as well, to make sure that the criteria we've all applied in the same way, and that it is being upheld in terms of not just being a gut feel, but having that proof in there. But I think that it's absolutely critical that you put the right amount of effort into each section.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, scoring a 10 out of 10 for a 15% criteria point versus 7 out of 10 for a 40%, you're going to know which one's going to get the highest overall percentage added to your score.
Karen, I mean,
Yes.
just picking up on Catherine's point, I think it's really important, actually, that the way that Karen, you've set up the judging does give that kind of collaboration and discussion and debate within the judging awards. So yes, we're judging in isolation, but then we come together as a group to discuss it. And over the years, we've had some really fierce debate, which I think has vastly improved kind of quality control and credibility of the awards, that without that, it would be missing.
Thank you.
So there is a fierce debate. People bring different insights, different perspectives before we kind of the actual first, second, third places are selected. Yeah.
The way we do that is, you know, every entrant will probably just see a one stage judging process from the outside, but it's very much as two-stage from our point of view internally. So all the judges score everything online individually without communicating with each other, unless they know that there's a particular judge that might have experience in one particular industry sector. And then I pull all the scores down from the individual judges, and if there's 2 out of 3 judges that have scored one particular entry quite high and one scored it quite low, I kind of throw that back to them and go, right, what's happened here? What is it? Is it because one of you doesn't understand a particular part of the entry, or talk about it, work out why you've marked it down, and then those scores might change. And that's really what Will was talking about, and that they really do have a fierce discussions, and sometimes it takes quite a long time when we've been in the room all together, 30 of us all together in London for judging day. Some of the categories can take quite a long time, yeah, so it's actually really entertaining to watch it, because they really do take it very seriously. So there's a couple of other things that I just want to cover. If anyone's got any more questions, please do pop them in the chat section, not the Q&A, unless they're confidential. Word count. Michael, tell me how important it is as to why you should be sticking to your word count.
Yeah, I'm sure this is something we've all heard if you've been through education in the UK pretty much from the entirety. It's you know, we will stop looking once you've kind of passed it in general. So please do make kind of sure you stick to that and get your most powerful points within it kind of early on. Catherine mentioned that we do and will have to go through a lot of these. So anything that, you know, goes over the word count, particularly if unfortunately you might end up being at the bottom of the pile, will not kind of be read over. So yeah, just keep it brief as much as possible and make sure you stick within the guidelines of each one. And don't necessarily aim to make it longer than it needs to be. I think sometimes, particularly, you know, I remember our experience when we put our application through, we were a smaller organization. So we kind of had this fear in our head that there was going to be these massive organizations with, you know, tons of money, and they'd be hiring consultants and stuff to write it for them. Really do keep it simple. If it is kind of a program that can be explained in a very short form, but the impact comes out very quickly and very easily, do that. Don't kind of overcomplicate it. It's kind of already been mentioned where it can get quite, you know, hard to see when someone's gone over the top and kind of drawn out more than it needs to be. So yeah, make sure you do kind of keep within the word count and don't feel the need to see it as an end goal. It doesn't need to be. You know, if it's something that you can explain in 1,000 words and I can draw out how impactful that is, that for me personally is actually a positive. Because it should, well, one, it's a positive in terms of time, because it means I don't have to keep reading as many words, but two, it shows that it's the innovation as well as being innovative is quite simple, and it's not necessarily always trying to, you know, have to recreate the wheel. It might just be a small turn of a cog or something like that, and for me that's quite impressive, particularly if you are, say, you know, a grassroots community organization. You don't have that people power or financial budget, but you've still done something quite impressive, but that can be explained in very simple terms.
Thanks, Michael. Another one is being open about challenges. If you've had some challenges that you've had to face to enable you to deliver this program or the activities within your business, let's hear them, because it's important that we understand that you've had these challenges, because it also shares best practice with other organisations, and how importantly how you've overcome them and what you've learned from those challenges. So yeah, please do make sure you include those.
I think, Karen, if we don't see that there are any challenges, then we might start to question things. We've all run these programs. We all know that there are hurdles at every step, in terms of if you really are doing something that's pushing the normal boundaries, there are going to be challenges. And if you're not writing about them, then we start to wonder. So I think really including challenges and how you've overcome them just makes a more authentic entry from people.
Yeah, cool. Okay, I think that's pretty much most of it covered. So is any judges, I'll give you a moment to have some closing words if you'd like, and then we'll polish off if no one else has got any. Will?
I think it's just to give you that confidence that we know, because we've done it, how much work it is to go into a submission and how time consuming that is. But you know, I can just reassure you, having done it, that we as judges take it incredibly seriously. You know, I block out a kind of day and a half in my diary for the judging, and then we have the debate, which is rigorous. And as Karen said, sometimes looking in, you'd probably laugh at the level of tension. And Catherine, I can remember one incident particularly that got extremely heated. But you know, I wanted to give you that reassurance that you're investing a lot of time in it. We're taking it very seriously. And I've been part of other awards that don't take it quite as seriously, but we really do.
Yeah, and I can definitely qualify that, because normally when I'm briefing everybody in the room and I split them all up into groups, I can hear the sort of hum and the din of what's going on, and sometimes they're in different rooms. If there's clashes of interest and you know some of our judges have entered other categories, I have to keep them apart. But yeah, last year was the first year that I was actually involved in listening to all of the conversations via Zoom calls, and I was actually really blown away by how seriously our judges do take the process. And I do know if a judge hasn't taken it seriously, and you'll know because they won't be on the panel for the next year. So yeah, that's kind of what happened. So Will and Catherine, oh, you're definitely doing a good job being 6 years. So no pressure, Michael. So I think, guys, we've kind of a wrap. So thank you, judges, for joining us. Thank you for the attendees that did come. I know there's going to be a lot of people that wanted the link to watch later. So I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, there's another session this afternoon, and that is for, I think that's for a small SME of the year and startup. So join that. And then tomorrow morning, we've got behaviour change campaign and employee engagement. So thank you everyone for joining us, and see you later. Thanks a lot.